American Airlines Flight 117, the night the skies went silent. On the evening of April 18, 1998, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport buzzed with the usual weekend energy. Families returning home, business travelers finishing their week, and students heading back to the East Coast. Among the dozens of departing flights was American Airlines Flight 117, scheduled to fly from Dallas to New York's LaGuardia Airport. The flight, operated by a Boeing 757-200, was considered one of American's most reliable routes. There was no reason to predict that this night would become one of the most unforgettable episodes in modern aviation history. The crew and the calm. At the heart of Flight 117's story were its pilots. Captain Daniel Mercer, 53, a quiet and steady professional with more than 20,000 hours of flight experience, and First Officer Emily Hart, 34, sharp-minded, technically brilliant, and known among her colleagues for her ability to remain calm during turbulence that would rattle. They complemented each other perfectly, Mercer with instinct and wisdom, Hart with precision and technical mastery. While the crew performed their pre-flight checks, passengers filed aboard. Some carried newspapers, others clutched coffee cups, and many were too preoccupied with their lives to realize this flight would test the limits of human courage and aviation skill. The aircraft pushed back at 7:42 p.m., taxied into the dim evening, and lifted off smoothly into a sky painted in fading orange and deepening blue. Inside the cabin, a soft hum settled over the passengers. No one could sense the unseen dominoes already lining up in the machinery beneath them. An uneasy sign. 2 hours into the flight, the jet cruised at 37,000 feet over Tennessee. Most passengers relaxed, headphones on, lights dimmed, conversations fading. The flight attendants prepared for descent, knowing New York's weather was deteriorating rapidly. Then came the first flicker of trouble. In the cockpit, a faint vibration trembled through the left side of the aircraft, subtle enough that most pilots wouldn't notice. But Mercer felt it immediately. Seconds later, the alert panel lit up. Boil press low. Engine 1. Mercer and Hart exchanged a tense look. Confirming low pressure, Hart said, scanning the gauges. Dropping fast. Temperature rising. A sudden, sickening jolt followed. The aircraft shuddered slightly, then again. More violently. The left engine began spooling down. Passengers felt it. A dip, a rumble, a shift in sound. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. The engine's failing, Mercer said. We're shutting it down. He declared an emergency with ATC. Fighting the storm. With one engine out, the aircraft could still fly. But it was already entering a dangerous situation. Ahead lay a massive coastal storm system, towering thunderheads stretching miles high, throwing wind, rain, and lightning across the northeastern skies. ATC attempted to vector Flight 117 toward LaGuardia, but the storm's intensity was growing by the minute. Passengers felt the cabin sway sharply as turbulence hammered the aircraft. A baby cried. A businessman gripped both armrests, eyes wide. A teenage girl began whispering prayers. In the cockpit, First Officer Hart fought the wind shear and violent gusts. Wind shift, 40 knots, Hart shouted as the aircraft jerked to the left. We're losing altitude. Then the unthinkable happened. Another alarm. Oil press low, engine 2. Hart's voice stiffened. Captain, the right engine is showing the same failure pattern. Mercer didn't respond immediately. He stared at the gauges as disbelief tightened his chest. Seconds. Boom! Whir! Wind up! The right engine shut down. The cockpit plunged into near silence, broken only by wind roar and blaring alarms. The quiet terror. Passengers felt it instantly. The sudden drop. The unnatural quiet. The way the aircraft seemed to glide instead of push forward. The entire cabin went silent except for the storm battering the fuselage. Flight attendants struggled to remain composed. One whispered to another, "We've lost power." Both engines. In the cockpit, Mercer made a decision that would later be studied by pilots worldwide. "We're ditching. Aim for the Hudson." A glider in the dark skies, the Boeing 757 was now a massive, powerless glider, descending through violent winds and sheets of rain. Lightning flashed, illuminating terrified faces. Luggage compartments flew open. Oxygen masks swung wildly. Mercer adjusted the glide angle with surgical precision. "Altitude?" he asked. 5,000 feet, Hart replied. "We're too high for the river. Storm pushing us down too fast." But there was no other option. Buildings, bridges, and tightly packed neighborhoods made an impact on the land nearly impossible. The Hudson River was their only hope. The descent. As they broke through the cloud layer, the dark river spread beneath them, a streak of silver under flashes of lightning. Mercer aimed the aircraft just south of the George Washington Bridge. Too far north and they'd hit the structure. Too far south and they risked hitting boats or piers. Inside the cabin, people braced in their seats. A mother held her son tightly. A couple squeezed hands whispering, "I love ye." A man who never prayed suddenly found the words. Flight attendants shouted through the chaos, "Brace! Brace! Stay down!" The impact. The fuselage slammed into the Hudson with a thunderous crash. The tail struck first, shattering, spraying metal and water. The aircraft skipped across the river like a stone, spinning slightly before leveling. Water surged through the lower fuselage. The sound inside was deafening. Metal tearing, people crying out, water rushing in. And then, stillness. Broken only by wind, rain, and the hiss of steam rising from the fractured fuselage. Survival in the storm. The aircraft miraculously remained afloat long enough for evacuation. Flight attendants deployed rafts with shaking hands. Some passengers swam into the freezing night, clinging to debris or rafts. The storm didn't let up. Winds whipped the water into waves that slammed against the broken aircraft. Mercer moved through the cabin, checking seat by seat, despite debris and icy water up to his waist. "Everyone out!" he shouted. "Move! Go!" First Officer Hart pulled passengers through a jammed exit, her hands bleeding from broken metal edges. Police boats, ferries, and Coast Guard units raced to the site. Divers jumped into the freezing water despite almost zero visibility. One by one, people were pulled to safety, shivering, crying, but alive. Aftermath. Out of 164 people, 158 survived. It was one of the most successful water ditchings in aviation history. Investigators later discovered a catastrophic, undetected oil contamination in both engines. A 1 in a billion mechanical sequence that robbed Flight 117 of power. Revised maintenance protocols were introduced nationwide. The crew received the Aviation Medal of Honor. Captain Mercer and First Officer Hart both retired years later, but their names became synonymous with extraordinary skill and bravery. The night no one forgot, American Airlines Flight 117 wasn't remembered for tragedy. It was remembered as the night pilots, crew, and passengers fought the impossible and survived. A night when the skies went silent, yet humanity's courage roared louder than any engine ever could.